Many of you may have noticed a question circulating online and in community conversations, and it goes like this. Is a $2,000 government check being planned for seniors or households in December? Has tariff revenue collected enough to send this out before the holidays? It's easy to see why this catches attention. When you're balancing everyday needs like groceries, heating bills, and medical costs, any talk of extra money can sound helpful. But today, we're focusing only on what is officially confirmed, not what is passed around on social media or unofficial sources. Later in this video, right around the middle, we'll talk about the 1 December update that affects millions of seniors' monthly budgets even more than a one-time check ever could. It's a detail many people are overlooking, so it's worth staying with me. Now, let's begin. Calmly, clearly, and with facts you can trust. What DOGE was and what it wasn't. In January 2025, President Donald Trump introduced a new initiative called DOGE, which stood for a government effort to reduce waste and bring more efficiency to federal spending. The president described it in a very memorable way when he said it would be a historic push, something that could reshape government spending just like major national missions did in the past. The goal behind DOGE was practical and clear. Review spending, reduce complicated steps where they weren't needed, cancel contracts that did not serve a strong purpose, and look for ways the government could run more smoothly without unnecessary costs. To many Americans, especially retirees and older families, this sounded like a move toward better use of taxpayer dollars, which is something most people agree on regardless of politics. One of the biggest reasons DOGE got so much public attention was the involvement of Elon Musk, a well-known business leader who had already built a strong public image based on innovation, technology, and bold decision-making. When Musk became connected to DOGE through social media appearances and public speeches, many Americans got the impression that this initiative would move extremely fast and bring very noticeable results. Because of Musk's large public following, his participation made DOGE feel even bigger than it already sounded. And when high-profile leaders talk about saving money at that scale, it can sometimes lead people to connect the dots themselves and assume that the savings might eventually come back to taxpayers in the form of direct payouts. This is exactly how the idea of savings checks became linked to DOGE in online conversations, even though there was never an official policy promising that from DOGE. Another part of DOGE that made it even more talked about were the savings figures that were repeated publicly, and these figures changed several times over the year depending on the speaker, report, or update. At one point, the savings estimate being shared was $2 trillion. Later, that figure shifted down to $1 trillion. Some updates later spoke about $150 billion. Toward the end of the year, some public messages mentioned over $200 billion in possible savings, depending on which report someone was reading. Now, for people who are not familiar with how early reviews and government budgets work, it's easy to think those numbers were final, confirmed, or locked in. But it's important to understand this clearly. These were always estimates, not audited totals sitting in an approved relief fund. In early spending reviews, estimates changing from one update to another is not unusual. When agencies begin looking for waste, they start with broad calculations. Later, when people begin digging into contracts, payroll numbers, administrative costs, and real paperwork, those early figures often get adjusted. That happened many times during DOGE's updates. But during those months, there was no bill passed by Congress that assigned DOGE savings for a stimulus-style payment or any kind of dividend check for households or seniors. When the public number changes so dramatically, trillion to billion to million level corrections, that tells you the initiative was still in early reviews and adjustments. So in the simplest words, DOGE was a reform initiative focused on trimming inefficient spending, not a payment program designed to issue checks. Any direct payout talk related to DOGE that you saw online came from hopeful interpretation, not official policy. The stimulus number and where it really came from? Now let's talk about the $2,000 number itself, because this is the figure that has seniors and families asking questions, especially when conversations mention December or the holiday season. President Trump has talked about using import tariffs as a source of government revenue for several years now. Even during the campaign season, Trump consistently pitched the idea that foreign goods being taxed at the border through import tariffs could bring money into the U.S. Treasury without increasing personal taxes on American families. The idea was not new, and it wasn't something that suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It had been part of his economic messaging for quite a while. As DOGE began working in early 2025, some supporters of the initiative began floating a concept called a tariff dividend. This was the idea that if enough money was collected from tariffs on imported goods, part of those funds might be returned to taxpayers in the form of a direct cash payment. The comparison many people used was the state of Alaska, which sends residents an annual dividend funded by oil profits. That Alaska example became a mental bridge for millions of Americans and especially seniors seeing the idea online. But now let's slow this down and make it very clear for older viewers. A comparison is not a confirmation, an idea is not a policy, and a presidential comment is not the same as a law being passed. For DOGE or any other government initiative to issue payments, the process would need to include Congress passing a bill, approval of nationwide eligibility criteria, a budget line item assigning those specific funds, and finally the IRS building a distribution system. None of those steps were completed for 2025. That means even if the idea sounded encouraging, there was no official way to issue a $2,000 payment in December 2025 or at any earlier point in 2025. Then came one of the most defining public comments that gave us clarity. President Trump was asked directly if these checks would come in 2025. He said clearly that these payments would not happen this year, and instead they would occur next year sometime, likely around the middle of 2026 or later, potentially before the 2026 midterm elections. That answer mattered for a big reason. It confirmed that when Trump said next year sometime, he meant a future possibility timeline, not an approved plan funding payments for 2025. And he even hinted that the eventual timing could be connected to the political calendar. Something that made people realize this was long-range talk, not an urgent winter payment plan for seniors or households. Another factor that many seniors don't always hear about is what happened when large government offices lost significant portions of staff during DOGE's first wave of cuts earlier in the year. When you reduce workforce quickly without replacing employees at the same speed, agencies can struggle to keep up, especially when millions of Americans depend on predictable services to manage Social Security deposits, Medicare communication, tax documents, or state benefit renewals like SNAP or utility help. While DOGE's intent might have sounded pro-taxpayer, the early results were mixed, and the broader conversation shifted toward the realization that the system still needed time to stabilize. Now, the next natural question is the one that matters most for your monthly budget. And this is exactly what we'll reveal halfway through the video. Can the money collected so far actually cover a $2,000 dividend payment, or would the country need a smaller check or borrowed funding to make it happen? Understanding the numbers clearly. Let's look at the financial side of this conversation in a steady, easy way. Many people hear the word billions or dividends from tariffs and assume the money is already collected, approved, and sitting there ready for checks. But the process is not that simple. The best information available so far shows that tariff revenue for 2025 has reached an estimated $195 billion. This money came from import fees placed on foreign goods entering the country. That means this is not personal tax on you. This is money collected at U.S. borders from imports. Now compare that number to the cost of sending a $2,000 payment to Americans. If the government were to make this payment available for 150 million adults earning under $100,000, the estimated cost would be around $300 billion. When you place these numbers next to each other, $195 billion versus $300 billion, you can easily see that the current tariff revenue is not enough to fully pay for all checks yet. There is a difference of more than $100 billion between the two amounts. That difference is what people call a funding gap. The government would need either more time to collect revenue, smaller payment amounts, or borrowed funds to fill that gap. But no final decision has been made about that, and nothing has gone through Congress yet for 2025. And this brings us to a very important reminder for seniors and families over 50. Before any national payment like this can go out, several steps have to happen. First, the total savings or revenue must go through a proper verification process. That means auditors and government budget offices have to confirm the exact amount saved. Second, Congress must pass a bill or approve a law that legally allows payments to be distributed to citizens. Third, once that bill is passed, the IRS or assigned agency must build a system that determines who qualifies, what income limits apply, citizenship or taxpayer rules, how banks receive deposits, what mailing systems are used, and what exact payments dates should be scheduled. None of these steps take minutes or days. In most cases, these steps take many weeks or even months. So as of December 2025, the situation is very clear. The tariff revenue that has been collected so far has not been formally verified or assigned for payout checks. There has been no law passed that approves $2,000 stimulus checks for 2025. That means there are no scheduled deposits, no IRS December payment plans, and no winter checks going out before Christmas this year. The conversation about payments is still just that, a conversation, not a funded program. What seniors should do now is not plan around unapproved checks, but instead keep steady focus on your confirmed monthly benefits, your Medicare notices, and updates delivered through official communication. That will always remain your safest financial foundation. Who this would actually support? Whenever relief payments or dividend check ideas are discussed at the national level, many people immediately begin wondering who those payments would help the most. This is a very normal question, especially for citizens over 50 who remember past relief programs and want to understand what it could mean for everyday life. So let's talk about the groups that were mentioned in public conversations and interviews throughout 2025. One of the groups often highlighted in these discussions are seniors who receive Social Security or SSI benefits. Many retirees live on fixed monthly income, so even a one-time boost like $2,000 could help cover essentials like heating bills in winter, extra holiday grocery costs, or prescription medication that can sometimes take a bigger portion of the budget than expected. Another group repeatedly mentioned are Americans receiving disability payments, including those on SSDI or SSI. Many disabled citizens are already managing basic needs carefully, so a relief deposit could ease pressure for medical travel, medication, caregiver support costs, or overdue monthly expenses that sometimes build up before the holidays. The conversations also include veterans who rely on disability benefits or modest retirement compensation. Many veterans track every dollar carefully, so a dividend-style payout would be deeply appreciated by families trying to afford auto repairs, winter clothing, medications, or basic comfort during high inflation months. Single parents earning under $100,000 were also mentioned frequently, especially those trying to cover childcare support, school costs, or holiday travel to see family members. Families with two incomes falling under the moderate or middle income range were also seen as key beneficiaries, especially those juggling mortgage payments, car costs, medical co-pays, winter insulation costs, and holiday expenses that naturally appear at the end of every year. Other public conversations also pointed toward unemployed U.S. citizens who are actively job-seeking but have not landed stable work yet. In households like these, one-time national deposits could help cover travel for job interviews, clothing for work preparation, overdue utility bills, or even larger medical co-pays that sometimes build up while waiting for insurance coverage to stabilize with a new job. But now comes the part seniors must understand most clearly. Right now in 2025, no relief check is going out to anyone. Not seniors, not veterans, not single parents, not disabled citizens, and not unemployed citizens. The discussion about these groups was always part of a future possibility conversation, not an approved or funded plan for December 2025. This means nobody is receiving a $2,000 stimulus or tariff dividend payment this December because there is no bill or legal payment method passed for 2025. We repeat this calmly, not to disappoint, but to provide clarity. If Congress eventually approves this plan in mid-2026 or at a later time, these are the groups that may benefit the most if eligibility rules match the current conversations. But for now, seniors should never feel singled out or excluded based on income speculation, because no program for 2025 exists. The most relatable and honest way to think of this for seniors and citizens over 50 is simply this. These are the Americans who could benefit if the checks ever move from idea into law, but they are not the Americans receiving checks this winter. Your confirmed monthly benefits remain unchanged, and your eligibility for any future program will be announced officially when and if the law is passed, not before. Staying safe when news spreads too fast. I know many of you like to stay informed, and that's a very smart habit. But over the last few years, especially since the pandemic, seniors have been one of the biggest targets for misinformation and online scams. When there is a lot of financial news circulating, stimulus checks, holiday payments, tariff dividends, Medicare changes, scammers take advantage of the confusion. Their job is to make bold claims quickly, and their goal is to rush your decisions so you don't take time to verify anything. But your benefits, your payments, and your financial planning deserve patience, clarity, and secure sources. So let's talk about the $2,000 check rumors you may have seen recently. Many posts online are asking questions like, checks coming Friday, or money landing before Christmas, or even making statements like, it's guaranteed, or just sign up here. But this is where you have to stop, take a breath, and remember the most important rule. No national payment can legally go out unless Congress has passed a law that authorizes it. The president can talk about ideas, supporters can promote estimates, and social media pages can spread hopeful messages. But none of it becomes real government money until it goes through legislation, approval, budgeting, and systems set up by the assigned government agencies. The IRS releases fraud and security warnings almost every year, reminding seniors that they are not sending new stimulus payments unless a law has been signed by Congress. This is not something unique to 2025. It has been standard policy for decades. If there is ever a change to national payouts, it is announced through official mail, your secure online accounts, or press releases from verified U.S. government offices that cite the law being passed. If you don't see the information connected to a confirmed bill, then it is not approved for payout. Whenever you're checking for updates, always use safe and direct sources rather than unofficial links. A few reliable places to get real benefit information include your official Social Security online account, Medicare notices that are sent every year, IRS letters or alerts you receive in the mail, and state portals for benefit programs such as SNAP, SSI payments, or heating and energy assistance programs, which many seniors qualify for during the winter. These secure systems protect your identity and ensure communications remain verified. Another thing to remember is that scammers gamble on speed while the government operates on process. That means false pages, fake sign-up forms, or unofficial deposit calendars usually appear online long before anything is actually approved by Congress. So avoid signing up for any payment or relief form that is not tied to official government communication. Protect your expectations and your personal information by relying on secure portals rather than unverified web links, text messages, or rushed online deposit rumors. The best protection against confusion is information, factual, calm, and verified. And now that you understand the difference between future ideas and funded payouts, you are in a better position to keep yourself financially safe and mentally calm during a very busy news season. What matters most is planning with facts, not rumors. Thank you for staying here till the end. Let's calmly bring everything together so the message is perfectly clear and helpful for your planning. Right now, as of December 2025, there is no $2,000 stimulus or tariff-based dividend check authorized, approved, or scheduled to be sent out this year. There has been no bill passed by Congress that allows any new nationwide payout for 2025. That means even if the idea was discussed loudly on social media and in public interviews, the law has not been written or signed for this year, and agencies like the IRS, Medicare, or Social Security cannot schedule or send these check payments without that legal approval. Tariffs have indeed generated revenue for 2025, and the estimated total collected so far is around $195 billion. That is real revenue. But if the country were to send a $2,000 payment to 150 million adults earning under $100,000, the cost of that program would be around $300 billion. When you compare those two numbers, $195 billion versus $300 billion, you can easily see that the money collected so far does not yet cover the full cost, leaving a funding gap of more than $100 billion. This is one of the biggest points seniors should understand clearly. A big number mentioned online doesn't automatically mean payout checks are approved. It only means the math is still on the table, being reviewed or debated, not authorized for December or winter payment deposits. DOGE, which originally began in January 2025 as a spending reform initiative, was a very real effort to trim inefficient or wasteful spending. Elon Musk's involvement gave the whole project a stronger public spotlight, and the savings estimates it shared over time changed frequently, moving from $2 trillion to $1 trillion, then $150 billion, then over $200 billion, depending on the public update you may have seen. These changing figures were always estimates, not audited payment funds assigned for payout checks, and no portion of those expected savings was ever formally budgeted to issue senior or household checks in 2025. If this topic still feels a little confusing to you, that's okay. You were right to ask. Your peace of mind matters more than headlines. The best way to check for your benefit updates will always be through official government mail, your Social Security account, Medicare notices, IRS letters, or your state benefit offices handling SSI or emergency assistance. Those channels are designed to protect you from misinformation and scams. They help you stay financially safe while reforms, budgets, or benefit talks continue quietly or slowly in Washington. And remember this as a general rule going forward: a president talking about a payment idea is not the same as Congress approving money for that purpose. One is a plan or idea, the other is law. Until the law exists, no one can give you a real date or deposit schedule. If you enjoy content that focuses on facts, explained calmly for seniors and families over 50, you can stay connected if you like. There is no pressure. Liking or subscribing is always optional, but it simply helps you see future updates if you want them. Again, thank you for watching today. You took time to understand what matters for your wallet, and that's always the right decision. Take good care of yourself, stay calm, stay informed, and I'll talk to you again soon.